Now, as careers professionals, a lot of the work that we do is often tied into equality and equity for the clients that we work with. But what can we do as a sector to ensure that our profession is as inclusive and diverse as possible? Now, that's the topic that we're going to be tackling on today's episode with our very special guest, who we'll introduce momentarily. But for those who haven't watched before, big welcome to the We Are Careers show. Here we are, it's series 7. Unbelievably. And for those who've not come across the show before, this is your weekly bite-sized CPD snippet for members of the careers community. So a very warm welcome if you've not joined us before. My name is Chris Webb. I'm a higher education careers professional and RCDP with the Career Development Institute. Very happy to be here as always, and joined by my wonderful co-host, Sabiha. So Sabiha, are you having a good Wednesday in spite of the horrible weather?
I am indeed. Thank you for that warm welcome, Chris. And today, as Chris mentioned, we're going to be talking about EDI in the CDI. And what does that look like and what does that mean? And we definitely want to hear from you, the viewers, whether you're watching live right now or you're watching on the playback. Make sure that you comment and share your insights, because very much today we want to explore and find out what other things that we can do, how can we champion to make our sector as broad and as inclusive as we possibly can. For those of you that don't know me, I'm known as Sabiha, and I work internationally, and I work with executive professionals to get unstuck and get them back into career flow without the stress. But I'm also the creator of the I Am Thriving career coaching program, where I work with and I teach international career coaches how to help their clients create even more powerful transformations without wasting time on resources and things that don't work. And as Chris mentioned, our new segment, Careers Cheers, we've got a couple of I'm going to say organizations and groups, as well as a snippet from something that our guests shared recently on social media as well. So for those of you that are watching right now, pop on into the chat. Let us know, what do you think about equality and diversity? Do you think that it makes our sector better and brighter? Yes or no? Let us know. Use the comments feature. And also as well, hit that share button and like button. If you're enjoying the content and the CPD snippet programs that we're creating, we love hearing from you. You help us make this show as diverse and allow us and encourage us to go and find those voices that need to be heard by other professionals. So who are we going to be celebrating? I'm going to start off with the first Career Cheers. And again, as always, join us in the chat and in the comments to celebrate with us before I hand over to Chris, who's going to share with you Careers Cheers number 2. So the Careers Cheers number 1, we're going to celebrate the career professionals in training. They are the lifeblood of the career development future, full of new ideas and experiences. They often have to combine work with their studies or give up work to study full time. So we're delighted that we have got the opportunity to celebrate this profession and this group. Chris, who else are we going to be celebrating today in the Careers Cheers?
Thanks, Sabiha. I think we should give a shout out as well to Liz Reese, who kind of put these suggestions forward, because I think when we sort of started the segment again, Liz raised a really good point, which was it's great to give shout outs to individuals, but a lot of it does kind of rely sometimes on people putting those names forward. And obviously, if you're someone who's kind of quite prominent in the careers profession, you might feature more regularly. So there's kind of two sort of calls to action in here. One is that the cheers that we've got this week, I think, are really kind of worthwhile, because we are targeting groups of people that aren't always acknowledged, which we'll come to in a second. But also just for anyone for future episodes of We Are Careers, if there's someone out there that you're working with, or a group of people you're working with in the profession that you feel are really kind of worthy of sort of deserving a bit of a shout out for the work they've been doing, but maybe don't always get that recognition, get in touch with us, let us know so we can give them that Careers Cheers. So that brings us on quite nicely to number 2, which again, is sort of maybe an area of our profession that doesn't always get as much acknowledgement. And that's kind of those career development trainers, assessors and verifiers that are kind of doing that work, perhaps partly around the first Careers Cheers we mentioned as well. So we're talking here about people who might be based in universities, colleges, training organisations and private consultancies, people who are providing materials to meet the requirement of qualifications, so personalising support and feedback for learners, adapting to individual experience, and maybe kind of assessing and verifying some of the quality standards that we have in our profession. So a massive Careers Cheers to everyone who features in that group as well. And again, if that is you from either our Careers Cheers 1 or 2, let us know in the chat, and we might have to pick that up. And then our final careers cheers this week. I don't know, Sabiha, do you want to pick this one up?
I will do, Chris. Thank you for that. But before I do that, okay, we've just had a couple of questions. I just want to quickly pick them up. Stephanie Wicks is just asking, she's got a client at 12:15. Is it going to be recorded? Another Facebook user is saying they've got a lunchtime client as well. Hey, listen, you do you. Got to go do the work. Got to go do the hustle. And yes, definitely, the show is recorded. You can find it on LinkedIn, Facebook community, as well as the YouTube channel as well. So wherever you're watching from, you can capture us. And so, as Chris said, the final one that we're going to be celebrating, thank you for Chris for popping that up, is words of the week from our today's guest. And so while before I sort of introduce her anymore, which I believe came from, she said a statement which kind of really resonated between Chris and I. And in fact, it made me go get my badge and stick it on, because her words are, not all heroes wear capes. Some wear CDI badges. So it gives me great pleasure and honor to welcome our guest, Ifza Shakoor. Welcome to the show. And pop into the chat, as Chris said. We want to hear from you, want to hear your insights, but also as well, if you've got any questions for our guests, then do pop them in the chat as well. So Ifza, for those people that don't know you, you've recently taken on a new role within the CDI. So tell us a little bit about that, but also as well, sort of kind of what you're working on as part of your PhD as well, because I know you're doing your PhD as well. So tell us a little bit about that. What should we know? What should the viewers know about you?
Okay, hello. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you for having me on the show. So my name's Ifza. I'm a PhD student. I've just begun my second year. And I've got ethical approval, so my survey should be coming out any day soon. So if you're quite recent to the profession, please do keep an eye out. So I'm looking at equity and diversity and changing the way and creating an equitable workforce within the career development sector. So at the moment, it's not that diverse in terms of age, gender, ethnicity, and all the different characteristics of diversity. So my work is looking into who makes up the sector, what their motivations are, why they're in the sector, and how we can make it more diverse and more open and more visible. So that's one side of me, that's my PhD side. So the other side kind of goes hand in hand. Now, I'm the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Communities Associate for the CDI, and I began that in June. And my vision is quite transformative because I'm an outsider into the sector. I'm a researcher. I've worked within career development and with younger pupils aged 5 to 11 on a project called Our Future Derby. However, I'm not a qualified careers advisor. So for me, one of the key things that I want to do is gain the voices and hear people's views on what they think the CDI should do and what can be done. So with David Morgan and I, and the CDI, what we're doing is putting together a whole host of activities and interviews, meetings, questionnaires, some workshops coming up in the new year to gain everyone's views before that informs a new policy for equity, diversity and inclusion.
Thanks, Ifza. I know we've got a lot of sort of the initiatives you're working on that we're going to talk about, particularly kind of from the CDI side of things. But I guess even sort of before we get to that, it's probably really important to sort of address that question about, why this is so important specifically within the careers sector. So, we talk all the time, I think, as careers professionals about, the value of equity and equality and diversity and inclusion within other industries. But why is it particularly something that you think we really need to focus on within our own profession, given that, as you say, it's possibly missing a little bit at the moment in certain areas?
Okay, so there's a phrase, you can't be what you can't see. And if you don't see someone that looks like you, or if you don't have a careers advisor with that cultural understanding of who your family are, who your background is, that collectivism, that individualism, and you get that you meet the diverse needs of society, because we live in a multicultural society. There's globalism, the way the world is completely changing. So we need advisors that understand their clients, their background, then the cultural knowledge, and just help them in terms of social mobility, in terms of a bigger picture and the longer term career implications of giving adequate and high quality careers advice to young people and other clients.
And I think you would echo that, wouldn't you, Sabiha, sort of based on some of the conversation we've had before, I think particularly around international clients. So I didn't know whether you wanted to kind of add some of your experience in there, because it is something I know we've talked about a lot before, sort of outside of the show.
We have, no, definitely, and I'm loving the fact that, you know, the CDI have embraced this and you know, and have brought in someone like Ifza to help us sort of kind of explore this, so that we can capture and sort of kind of then put in place sort of good practice that allows us to sort of kind of build upon what's already been done, because there has been some great work that has been done, not only by the CDI but many other organisations as well. And so we want to now build on that, use that as sort of that stepping stone, the foundation to sort of kind of build more and more. And obviously research is part of that. Obviously then there's the practical aspect as well. I know that if for the viewers that are watching right now, is any of what we're talking about here resonating with you? Perhaps maybe you yourself have had experiences around equality and diversity, or the lack of thereof. Do let us know. Use the chat, use the chat feature. Let us know. Share your comments. Share your experiences, because one of the aims of the reasons why we do the show and why we bring on sort of kind of amazing guests like Ifza is because we want to sort of kind of crack these subjects open, and we want to explore them so that we can come up with practical and tangible ways of how we can solve this. But yes, very much from the international perspective, especially with the work I've done around sort of international students coming, here to the UK to sort of kind of, find, build and create a career and a future for themselves. I know so many challenges and that they have faced. It's hard enough to leave home if you're just moving up the road a few hundred miles. But imagine leaving your home country and coming to an, sort of an alien environment. You look to people like us, professionals like us, to support and guide. And so, we want to make sure that we are equipped with the skill sets and the knowledge, and and we're exposing ourselves to situations and scenarios that allow us to be the best possible practitioners. So if you're watching right now and you are thinking about, how can I be a better practitioner? How can I serve the community or those clients that you are serving? How can I serve them better? Well, for me, equality and diversity is an integral part of that. And if I'd like, and I think I'd like to bring Chris and Ifza in about what you both feel about, where equality and diversity, because sometimes it can be seen as a bolt-on, or it's just something that we have to do. And I'd be interested to hear from Ifza, if I come to you first, what your thoughts are about sort of equality and diversity, and whose responsibility is it? Is it just an individual? Is it collective responsibility? And what can we do to show in a meaningful way that we are inclusive and diverse as individual practitioners, to the communities that we serve, but also as a profession?
Okay, thank you for that, Sabiha. So for me, I don't call EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion. For me, it stands for equity, that E, because it's all about creating an equitable society, one that can give back to everyone, one that can lift people up and support those that need the most support, the marginalized communities, the communities that need the most, the communities that need the most support. So for me, it's all about the new talent, the new skills, and it's everyone's responsibility. It's not just the individual's responsibility. It's not your responsibility if you're a marginalized person or part of a marginalized group. It's absolutely everyone's, because inclusion benefits everyone. It's a new talent, the new skills, the fact that you can reach into those harder to reach communities, and the fact that it will benefit the economy. Because if you look at the longer term pictures, if you've got good careers advice, it can support those that need it the most. Often people at the top of society get that high quality careers advice, but where it's most needed is where diversity comes in, with diverse practitioners, and it can be diversity in terms of your social class as well.
I think it's really important you mentioned about that inclusivity benefiting everyone, because I think sometimes it can be easy, as you said, for people maybe that aren't in underserved or marginalised groups to take that step back and go, well, okay, there's very little I can actually do materially, which of course is absolute rubbish, because you can be an ally in almost everything that you do, whether that's advocacy or support or whatever. And I think it's particularly important, you mentioned there about it's that exposure to, we mean diversity from all sorts of different angles. And actually there's a comment in the chat that's come through, which I think really represents this. which is talking about, and this is Facebook user, sorry, I can't see who you are, but great comment. Come across quite a few careers practitioners who've done the academic route into the profession and perhaps looked down on people who may have done the level 6 vocational route instead. And having taught on both, there are great practitioners and poor practitioners from both sides, as you'd expect, from any kind of qualification pathway. So that idea of needing both routes and parity of esteem, as we would expect if we were talking about this with young people in terms of, or career changes in terms of academic options, needs to be true in the profession as well. So I think such an important point about, that inclusivity benefiting everyone. And actually, we have to cast a broad net. We're talking about equity and justice and not just the idea of equality, which sometimes we've seen with corporations can be slightly tick boxy. And I think we've had that mentioned a couple of times on the show. So I think what you're suggesting, Ifza, is much more kind of tangible. And I wondered if this would be a good time perhaps to kind of come back to some of the stuff you were mentioning about the CDI. Obviously, you've mentioned the kind of longer term strategy that you're working on with David Morgan, but I gather there are some sort of shorter term measures and things that you're working on at the moment building up to that. So I wondered if you might tell us a little bit more about some of those different initiatives.
Okay, so at the moment in the pipelines, what we have got are some webinars. We're hoping to have monthly open sessions where anyone can come in, perhaps an hour a month. We'd set a date yet, where we can talk about issues that are within the sector, issues that individuals are having, issues that groups are having, and seeing what the CDI can do to put in support mechanisms. So I've had individual chats so far with some of our practitioners and colleagues. But now what I want to do is cast the net a little bit wider and get more people's voices in, just to work out what we can do, where we can go, and how the CDI can support with this. So then we've got a questionnaire coming up after that. That's a wider one for CDI and non-CDI members about equity, diversity and inclusion and how the sector can be transformed. And then in January, on January the 23rd and 24th, but don't hold me to those dates, we've got 2 days of drop-in Zoom sessions where we look at a different aspects of diversity, and we have 2-hour sessions, and we literally look at what are the issues, what can a CDI do about it, and how can practitioners be supported. So we're looking at diversity from every angle, whereas with my PhD, I'm looking at diversity in terms of ethnicity, but with the CDI, it's a lot wider than that. So it is all about social justice, it's about great equity. And that comment about the vocational and the level 6 route, I found that quite interesting because that's something that I'll be looking at in my research. So I'm asking participants, the participants to be recently qualified practitioners that have either done the vocational or the traditional level 6 route. So it'll be quite interesting to see what comes out of that.
Okay, that's amazing, and thank you. So those of you that are watching, whether you're watching live, as I say, or you're watching on the replay, join into the comments. If anything that Ifza's been sharing with you, perhaps even Chris and I have shared something that's resonated with you, jump into the comments, let us know. We love seeing those comments. It makes it more engaging for us as well, but also as well, it makes sure that we're bringing you sort of these diverse voices. And as Ifza mentioned, there's a lot of initiatives that are coming up over the coming months that the CDI is putting its effort towards. Now, you mentioned that you're looking for more diverse voices to help you shape the future of the CDI. And I know one of the things that we've talked outside of the show is writing for the Careers Matters magazine, as well as I believe there's a diversity board that you're helping to set up. So how can writing for Careers Matters and joining the diversity board help the profession become more diverse, inclusive and equitable?
Okay, really good question. Thank you, Sabiha. So it's all about visibility. If people aren't making noise about these sorts of issues, they're going to be swept under the carpet, and that's happened for far too long. These issues have been long-standing, and it's only now that they're beginning to be picked up, and we really want it to be authentic change. I think that's one of the key things, and the fact that we're giving diverse practitioners a platform. There's a saying by Donna Mertens, who put together a transformative paradigm, which I use a lot in my PhD. And she says that everyone has a voice, but not everyone has that platform. So it's about giving that platform and enabling them to have their voices heard, because sometimes if you're not in a position of power or privilege, no matter how much noise you make about something, nobody pays attention. And this way, we're hoping to kind of reduce that barrier and make it more easier for diverse voices to get across that they are here, they are part of the CDI and the careers community, and there are issues that are quite systemic and change is coming. So it's just about highlighting what can be done and highlighting these practitioners to create visibility outside of the sector to get more people to come in as well.
I think that's so important. Sorry, I was on mute there. Not particularly helpful. But yeah, I think that's so important to mention that, because it's something we've talked about a lot, both on the show and I think kind of in private as well. That, you know, in a small profession or in a small sector, it can be common that you get similar names and similar voices coming back up. And there's often no bad intention behind that. It's people who are maybe kind of quite proactive, or that they tend to kind of spend a lot of time on social media or those sort of things. But you're right that it definitely causes a problem, which is that you get that same voices resonating, and that you might well have people who've got a huge amount to offer, but they don't feel like they've got the platform, or they feel like maybe it's a bit of a closed shop, even if it isn't. So I think that side of things is so important, because I've seen that happen in sort of other areas as well. And as you say, the visibility is what's important, or the feeling that you have got a platform and that you will be listened to, or you will be heard when that stuff comes out. So sorry, Sabiha, I don't know if I cut you off there and you were about to say something similar.
Oh no, I was about to say, you've kind of took the words out of my mouth, Chris. That was exactly sort of kind of like the sentiment that I wanted to share. And I just wanted to bring in some of the comments that have been flowing in as well. You've definitely got a fan here. If someone was saying earlier that they're so looking forward to hearing you speak. So have you had value, Facebook users? I don't know who you are, but are you enjoying the conversation? Let us know in the chat. And what was it that Ifza shared that resonated with you? And if you have any questions for her, we've got her for a few more minutes still, so pop them in the chat box, let us know. We've got James who's saying hello from his Career Dashboard UK. Now, I'm hoping I'm saying this name right. It sounds Spanish, I feel. Gaye, Ines Faso. She's saying that this is such a welcome topic. Yes, more diversity, and also to greater representation of squiggly emerging careers in the career profession. I too would love to have access to a recording and emerging in the dialogue that follows. So clearly, if so, we're getting people's appetites where people are excited and interested in what you're doing and the work that's going to be coming up. So what is sort of the best way, and I know Liz has just popped in as well about a question about the growth, but before I sort of kind of come to that, if so, what's the best way people can get in touch with you? How can people connect with you, reach out with you, so they can continue this conversation?
Okay, so I've got an EDI Associate email. It's ediassociate@thecdi.net. I've got my LinkedIn, which Chris has already added. But I just wanted to add one more point a major point that I missed off on the last question.
Okay.
You asked me why it's important for diverse voices to have that platform. It's also about allyship, so people can see things from the other person's point of view. It's about widening your knowledge and your and sorry, my phone's speaking randomly. So it's about widening your worldview and your understanding, so you can see diversity through a different lens, because everyone's got different experiences, different lived experiences, and different perspectives. But if you can see through the lens of somebody else that may have had different issues to what you've had, it just widens your understanding.
100%. And I feel as well, as a practitioner, you become a more powerful, transformative practitioner. So if you're somebody who's about, making, providing compassion and empathy to your clients that you're serving, so that you can help them transform their lives, take them from where they are right now to where they want to be. I feel that equality and, that sort of diversity, the diversity of experience, diversity of exposure can only make you better as a practitioner. And there's more comments kind of coming through, but I can see we're sort of kind of quickly running out of time. Liz was asking a question about, I'll just kind of take these 2 points and then we'll wrap up for today. But as Ifza said, there's great ways that you can connect with her, so do reach out to her. Do not make this as a springboard to continue the conversation. Liz's point is about The apprenticeship route for training L6 advisors, will it extend ED in our profession? She's saying she hopes so. I think if so, you've commented on this and you feel that this can definitely be a way and a route for, creating a more diverse.
I think one of the issues was the fact that some people don't tend to go to university and certain groups don't always go to university. So with the apprenticeship route, I do think it's opened up doors to people that are not the traditional university students. So yeah, I'm hoping so.
And I think that sort of scaffolding as well with the careers assistant at level 4, I think, if there's a way of kind of making that, so that becomes a more kind of, common pathway as well. I do think that's where maybe, say, teaching, for example, you might find that there's lots of learning support teaching assistant as a stepping stone. How many stepping stones do we have into the careers profession? So I think that side of things could be really important as well. Sabiha, any other comments we want to pick up?
There is, I believe it's Leanne Hamley that's just popped in as well to say that referencing connections used to have training for career practitioners on ethical practice, which involved, reflecting self-reflection on power, personal reflections to clients, etc. And how she's saying that she's noticed that somewhat disappears. To be inclusive with each other as well as our clients, we need to challenge ourselves, our lenses, who we warm to, who we don't warm to, etc. So a great point there as well. And then there's finally, I'm just going to bring this in, and then that's it. We are done. That was it. And this is another Facebook user just saying diversity of the careers workforce is also so important in terms of a wide range of clients feeling welcomed and comfortable accessing career services. That's so key, isn't it? I mean, how many people, we can only base our data and what we collect by the people that come and use our services, particularly within the sort of kind of educational sector. But there will be hundreds, if not thousands, of potential users who are not coming and accessing the service. And could it be down to the fact that they don't feel included? They don't feel the accessibility is there. And so we have to constantly be challenging ourselves and asking ourselves, what can we be doing more of to be more inclusive, diverse? And we're going to have to pin it there. Is there any final thoughts before we sort of wrap up today's show?
Absolutely. I just wanted to say what Leanne said in her comment, we can pick it up on that diversity board. So I know I told you it was a diversity board, then I switched up and called it webinars, but it's the same thing. So everyone's welcome to join, and please keep an eye out for communication about that.
Fabulous. Thank you for that.
Thanks, it's just fantastic. So much packed in. And I think what's great, as you can see from the comments, that it's a conversation people obviously want to take forward. So it's great there's so much work going on this front from the CDI perspective, and obviously really keen to hear about the outcome of your research, as sort of things progress. So thanks for joining us. Hope you're going to stay around for a few minutes just for our news section, which is what we're about to move on to now. So again, as always, we'll try and pack this in as quickly as we can. So Sabiha, over to you. We're going to be looking at the latest news stories from the CDI and the wider kind of career spheres. So what have you got for us, first of all, from the CDI, or have we covered all CDI things with our guest today?
We've definitely covered a big chunk with our guest today, but there's a couple of stories that I have picked out. Now, the first one that I want to talk about actually is about how can the career development profession respond? And it sort of kind of fits in and sits in quite well with what we've sort of been talking about here today. Now, this was something that came out in the summer in June 2022 in the issue of Careers Matters. It was by Richard Piper, who wanted us to contemplate the perils and pitfalls of predicting in a post-pandemic world. And he posed himself the question, how will guidance theory and practice respond to these developments? And he offered some suggestions for approaches to working with our clients. Now, if for any reason you missed this edition, the June edition, and you are a member of the CDI, then please do head on over to the website. In the members areas, you can find an electronic version of this, or you can dig out the actual printed version of this. And the reason why I'm bringing it up now, because you might be wondering, well, God, this was a few months ago, because I know for a lot of people in the summer, they take a summer break, and this could have been something that was overlooked. And I do think that this fits in really nicely with what we've been exploring today. And it's another sort of kind of layer, another angle to what we've been talking about here today. So that was story number one. Then number two is peer activities are especially valuable as professionals as we network and for our CPD. And now there are so many different opportunities that the CDI has. And if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, hang on a second, I don't know what the CDI is. I'm not a member. How do I get my pin badge, as well. Well, head on over to the website. There's information on how you can become a member for less than, I say this all the time, I know, but for less than a cup of Starbucks coffee, frappuccino, you can get access to all of these sort of kind of peer activities that I'm going to be listing out. Now, there are lots of groups that you can join, including you can participate in the communities of practice, the career development professional, there's the careers leaders, there's the private practitioners, there's one specific for each region, so whether you're in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, England. And these groups have been set up for mutual support, but also as well to sort of kind of have some of your answers questioned. Now, the CDI has many other community groups of interest, including the Facebook community and the LinkedIn group as well, which are great places for discussing professional development issues, personal dilemmas with other members. And it's a great chance as well to connect with colleagues and share your common concerns, including what we've been talking about here today, which is equality, diversity, and inclusion. So please do head on over and find a group that you can grow your practice with. And then finally, I just want to highlight there is masses of new programs, training, one-off workshops, digital bites training that are coming up. Again, all of that information is available on the website. One particular one that I wanted to bring your attention to was Key Trends and LMI. I know this is a favorite of many of you, labour market information, so I just wanted to highlight the latest one that's coming up that Helen will be doing on Tuesday, the 18th of October at 9:30 a.m. Where she's going to be looking at and helping you prepare for the future of the labour market. So that's my wrap up of the CDI stories for this week. Chris, what have you got for us?
Yeah, thanks, Sabiha. I've got a few different things, but just before I kind of come on to that, I just wanted to ping this comment up for you, Ifza, which I think is a ringing endorsement of today's show. So can we have more Ifza? And Facebook user has clarified in the future, understanding that we are only a half an hour show. But yes, so if you're happy to join us again, I think we would definitely like to do a bit of a follow-up on this.
I feel honoured. Please come along and join the board meetings, the diversity ones.
Yep, so do keep an eye out for those. Again, if you're a CDI member, you should get that information through via email. But if not, do follow us on the LinkedIn and Twitter kind of feeds that we've sort of shared sort of earlier on in the programme. And just as a kind of a reminder, before I go through the final bits of news, we've had a few people ask about, can I catch up with this recording afterwards? Yes, you absolutely can. There's a couple of different ways to do that. So if you go over to the CDI website, cdi.net/wearecareers. You can watch all of our previous recordings. Or, as Sabiha's already mentioned, you can find us on the Facebook Community of Practice. The recording appears shortly after we finish the show. LinkedIn, under the CDI LinkedIn page, and also under the CDI's YouTube channel. So yes, absolutely, you can watch us back on record. If you want to see more Ifza, which apparently everybody does. So that's a good starting point to be from. So just very, very briefly, some quick news items before we kind of give you the details about our next show, which is coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So 3 things that I've just kind of highlighted, which might be worth having a look at for careers professionals. First one's actually a Telegraph article that features our own CDI President, Carolyn Parry. It's all about why people should make resolutions in the autumn and not New Year. Now, it's quite a diverse article. There's stuff about well-being in there, stuff about career development. It's quite mixed, and there's lots of different experts they brought in. But it's just really nice because actually I read it and I thought to myself, yeah, New Year's resolutions don't make anywhere near as much sense as autumn resolutions. You've come out of the summer, you're probably feeling slightly more positive, you've got the run up to Christmas, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I would definitely recommend having a read of that. Second bit is something that, again, just worth keeping an eye on for next month, particularly if you work within the school and college sector. So National Careers Week are running the first Green Careers Week in November. I think it's sort of second week of November. But they've got a new e-magazine out, which is there to kind of help people prepare if careers professionals are thinking of doing this sort of thing. I know certainly in the higher education sector, we're having more and more conversations than ever with students and graduates about sustainability, green jobs, green careers. And so it's very, very topical. And then sort of the third news item of this week is around a campaign many of you may have seen from Speakers for Schools, which is about work experience for all. So essentially trying to bring back the mandatory requirement for work experience that we previously had before it was taken away sort of in the sort of 2010s. And there's some quite interesting sort of data on there about the benefit that undertaking work experience has for young people in terms of kind of future levels of unemployment and salary and those sort of things. So quite good evidence to use if you're kind of making the case at the moment in schools that you might work in about the benefits of work experience. So just 3 very kind of brief bits of news there. That really sort of takes us to the end of the show. We haven't run too far over, which is a pretty big achievement for us. So all that really remains to be said is just keep a lookout for our next episode, which is coming up in 2 weeks' time. So that is on Wednesday, the 19th of October at 12 o'clock. We're going to be talking disrupting education. Big topic with Sam Moynier. So do keep a lookout for that. But in the meantime, massive thank you to Ifza. Thanks for joining us today. We will be welcoming you back.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Really pleased you could join us today. It's been such an interesting debate. Massive thank you to my fantastic co-host, Sabiha.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And then finally, thank you to the viewers that have been watching us and rock up every week, every show that we do, supporting us and guiding us and encouraging us and letting us know what voices you want to hear from so that we can bring to you the subjects that matter to you the most. So we'll see you next time. Till then, take care.
Take care. See you